On Saturday, it was Cormac Ryan taking the scoring lead for North Carolina. And then on Monday, it was very definitely RJ Davis. Is this what scoring balance looks like?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Thursday, February 29th, 2024. It's Leap Day. Coach, you know anybody born on Leap Day? It's like 4 years old and they're really 82 or something like that. It's crazy.
No, I don't know any.
Yeah.
I'm sure I know somebody. We just don't know who it is.
That's great stuff, man. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host. That man I was just chatting with is Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes, a 2-decade veteran of the Carolina Summer Basketball Camp, joining us every week. We want to thank you for joining us to get your Carolina content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch. Special shout out to you everydayers who are joining us. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Coming up on the show today, we're going to have a conversation about kind of some thoughts about court storming. I know that's been a national conversation lately, especially because of some friends down the road in Durham, shall we say, Coach. And, I think it would be really helpful and appropriate for us to get the point of view from a coach. So Coach Rob's going to talk about that. Also, he's going to bring the point of view of somebody who was security detail on a court, or I guess a field storming in a big SEC football game one time. So a lot of helpful insight there. Also, we'll have story time, a very fun and recent story time today to talk about. But first, we're going to talk about Carolina and offensive balance, specifically with scoring. And it's funny this comes up, and I've been getting a lot of questions about it in the past 48 hours or so. Oh, I don't know, probably because of the whole RJ Davis just scored 42 points and nobody else had double digits thing, and everyone's kind of freaking out about that. So, Coach, I think a lot of people get this idea that offensive balance is specifically 5 scores balancing the scoring game in and game out. And I think, I want to have a conversation about, is that what we mean by offensive balance? Or is it more like in any given game, you got 5 guys who could be your leading dude and you like ride his coattails in that game, or a balance of both of those things, where some games you might have all 5 starters in double digits, or some games you might have RJ Davis with 42 points and nobody else in double figures. What does offensive balance look like to you, Coach?
Yeah, I think the traditional view of balance is you having 3 or 4 guys in double figures, and it's all pretty even. That's not reality. And there are special nights that just happen. And Monday was one of those. I mean, when you get somebody who's just absolutely in a different world, different zone, I don't really care as a coach about who's in double figures that night. We've got to get him as many shots as possible. We had a situation this year in a game where one of our guys off the bench hit 9 threes in a game, Jay Hickman. And when he's like that, as a coach, you run stuff for him. You continue to get the ball in his hands. The guys on the team understand good basketball is get him the basketball. Balance doesn't really matter anymore. But when you talk about balance, when you have guys 3, 4, sometimes, and I think in Carolina's case right now, it could be 5 guys who can make impact and be able to, when Elliot starts to be able to score more, all of a sudden he's got opportunities to be maybe that 5th guy where you can rely on more than one guy. There makes them very, very hard to defend. When you start talking about conference tournaments, talking about national tournaments, when you have, 3 guys to guard and know you have to put your best 3 defenders on them, most teams don't have 3 great defenders. So somebody's going to get an opportunity. So I think balance is important, but you're going to have that 1 or 2 games where people just go off, and balance really doesn't matter that much. It's about impact. It's about winning the game, and that's all that really matters.
So, Coach, do you have concern, like if there's a game like, Cormac has just gone through this stretch of 4 straight games where he's a combined 50% from 3, and then he goes 1 for 9 on Monday night. And the reverse, you have RJ having a tough game in Charlottesville. Let's be honest, Reese Beekman is a dude on defense. and then just blows up on Monday night 48 hours later. Does that level of up and down, back and forth concern you, or would you say it's more like, honestly, I love that because I don't know who it's going to be on a given night, but my job as a coach is to, as you were just saying, recognize that hot hand and ride it.
My concern is if you have that one game where everybody goes cold, and we haven't seen that quite yet. And again, if Reese Beekman is guarding Cormac Ryan at Virginia, if they had identified that, if Cormac had a couple of big games before, RJ is not going 1 for 14. I don't care who else, just not the way. So that's the only concern I have. I love the fact that they can have a guy, sometimes two guys, not have a good night offensively, and you have guys to pick you up. Harrison Ingram to me is maybe the X factor in this whole thing because, we got to see him in person on Monday. He didn't play great, didn't shoot the ball great, put it that way. He played a really good floor game.
Yeah, that's a good adjustment on your wording. Yeah.
The key about that is he doesn't care. He does not care about his stats. He does not care he just wants to win basketball games. That's his only concern. So when you have a third guy, in this case, who when he's hot will get his shots, and when he's not, he can defer and make extra passes. When he doesn't care about anything but winning, that team is extremely dangerous.
How you just mentioned that with Beekman, and like maybe he had been guarding Cormac, and that probably takes Cormac away. How much of a factor is that in the offensive balance conversation we're having, Coach? Where in game planning, in your scouting report, it's like we are not going to let Armando Bacot beat us. We will double hard and make somebody else do it. And so you see Armando not have a great statistical scoring game, but maybe affects it in other ways. Or maybe another game, it's like, hey, we're going to cut the head off the snake. And so Elliot Cadeau will not beat us. Somebody else is going to have to distribute. How much of a factor is that in this offensive balance conversation?
No, I think it's very, very, very important. Our last conference or regular season game last Saturday, we went box and one to start the game. Took their best player and just frustrated him. And he walked by me and says, "Looks like I got a new best friend tonight, huh, Coach?" And I was like, "Yep." And that's part of it. And his first shot was an air ball. And the first time they tried to reverse the ball to him and we had denied it, it takes them out of their rhythm. It took him out of his rhythm. Now, he was able to score some later. He's a very good player.
Sure.
But at the same time, getting people out of rhythm, whether you change defenses or change schemes or change ball screen defenses, anything to get people to get out of a rhythm so they don't know what to expect defensively from you, I think is a huge, it's a benefit for us. So, but when you have that balanced guys and guys who can make plays regardless, that's when the team, a mature team, and I think Carolina's as mature as any team that I've seen out there right now. I know we got some teams maybe older, maybe more experienced, but when it comes to mature,
not many.
No, not many. But I think they've got guys who can make plays, they can make adjustments, and if teams did throw something on them, I think Syracuse was a good, indication of, hey, we weren't ready for the zone, and that's something they needed to talk about. And again, it's good that happened during the regular season, didn't happen during the tournament, but again, something that they can address in practice. Say, hey, make sure we're ready for anything at any time.
Yeah, because Coach, you talked about your concern is not what happened Monday night. Like ultimately, if it's everyone just standing around watching RJ, that becomes a problem, sure. But you said your bigger concern is actually if it's a night where everyone's off, whether it's because of how the defense is playing them or because like Cormac and Harrison on Monday night, the shots just aren't falling sometimes. How like, and that's the unfortunate thing of something like the NCAA tournament. You have one of those nights, as you said, and you're done. So, what would you say is the probability that on a given night, Elliot Cadeau, RJ Davis, Cormac Ryan, Harrison Ingram, Armando Bacot are all, and obviously Seth and the Jae'lyns as well, but all 8 of those dudes, none of them are hitting? That I do not believe there is a night when that is completely gone. And what I love that Coach Hubert Davis does so well because of his NBA mindset is not like, oh, we're going to continue to spread the love around. It's like, no, we're going to find who's hot. We're going to exploit matchups and go get it, right? Like, I just don't see a world in which all 8 of those dudes are cold on the same night.
No, and then I don't think you mentioned Seth either. There's another guy who's been able to make plays big times. I have to continue to add Paxton Wojcik to the mix because I know he's my guy, but he's somebody. We talked via text the other day. I still think there's a game that he's going to have to make a shot.
Mm.
And maybe it's foul trouble, and maybe it's the first half. Maybe it's just something in there. Maybe it's one of those situations where guys are cold and they can throw a Seth Trimble and they can throw Jalen Washington to make a big shot when somebody else is. And again, the talent is so deep, and it's so that the whole depth of the team, the talent. There's somebody's going to make plays. Somebody's going to get hot. I just don't see it happening where everybody goes cold on one night.
That's a good word on Paxson. I should definitely have included him because his veteran experience at this Division I level is going to come into play at some point in this closing stretch. That's a very good word, Coach. Thank you for saying it. Now, on Saturday in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, there was a conflagration of tie-dyed crazy college students rushing at a young man from the team from Cameron. And, there's been a lot of talk about it. Now, let's put that specific thing aside. And Coach and I just want to have some conversations about the ideas of court storming. What do we do with it? Do we need to ban them? Is that the question? Or are there other questions we should be asking? We'll get into all of that in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode's brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits to LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Court storming has been a big part of the national college basketball conversation this year, Coach. It always happens, but I think particularly because the player in all of women's college basketball got court stormed on, and she got bumped around a little bit, Miss Jae'lyn Clark. And then on Saturday, Wake Forest won at home against Duke, stormed the court, and, they were out there a little bit early. There were some things with that. Kyle Filipowski got run into, and maybe he was injured. I mean, we're recording this on Wednesday. Duke plays tonight. You're listening or watching this on Thursday. Kyle Filipowski's playing tonight. I will tell you that right now. And so that's not the conversation I want to have, Coach. I want to remove Kyle Filipowski. I want to remove Jae'lyn Clark and just talk about this concept in general. Like, if it's helpful, because I don't want us as Tar Heels to be tainted by anti-Duke bias. So if it's helpful, make it Armando Bacot out there instead of Kyle Filipowski. How would you be feeling in that scenario? And so, Coach, what I want to look at, the question has become this. So let's start here. Do we need to ban court storms? I just want to ask that general question first.
My first impression is no. I don't think you can. And we can talk about my personal example in a little bit, but it's college kids. This is not the NBA. This is college. And you've got kids and they have intramurals in these facilities, and they're used to being, and they're more comfortable than maybe an NBA arena and things like that. But it's got to be, in my opinion, it's fun. And college is meant to be fun. But you have to protect those players. Jae'lyn Clark, who's just, National Player of the Year. She's going to be one of the greatest women's players of all time, one of the greatest players of all time. And you got to protect those people. You cannot let a fan, home or away person, be able to get close to her. So I don't think you need to ban them. You just got to be some kind of anticipation of something happening, and whether you hire extra security or whether you have a plan in place. But the best plan that I saw, and this kind of hurts a little bit because it was Tennessee this year, got hammered at Texas A&M. I have never seen one handled better. They had personnel in place. The game ended. The players had gotten over by the scorers table, by the benches. A rope came out. People in security came out. They had them completely guarded. Nobody could get to them. And those Texas A&M students had the floor covered in 30 seconds. But you could tell that there was a plan. Everybody, they all funneled from one corner, and it was opposite the opposing bench, so it wasn't anywhere near that. But it was organized. It was very much under control. Nobody felt bad about anybody felt in any kind of danger whatsoever. So I thought Texas A&M had a plan. They executed it perfectly, and the guys at Tennessee were safe. And that's all that really mattered.
I love that, Coach, because I think that shows the dichotomy of the Wake Forest example and that example, because it really is about the arena personnel having a plan and, as you said, executing it well. And that's where I fall on this as well. I'm right with you. To me, asking should we ban court storms is asking the wrong question. I want to say, how do we regulate them better? Because, as you said, they're going to happen. That's part of the special sauce of college basketball versus the NBA, as you just said. And I don't want to lose the beauty of that, but we got to do it better. And like, I know I said, let's take the Wake Forest and Duke out of it, but let me go back to something about that game. In that specific scenario, a lot of times a coach will pull their starters off the floor when it's about to happen, have the walk-ons out there, or just say, hey, look, we're just going to pull our whole team off the court. Everyone understands the deal. Let's get it. In this scenario, Duke was only down 4 with like 2 seconds left. If somehow Jared McCain gets off a 3 and is fouled, we got overtime, right? And so you have to play this out. You can't, if you're John Shire, you can't pull your guys off the court. And so you have to protect the sanctity of the final plays of the game there. I won't budge on that. But if it is a different, so you need to be situationally and contextually aware of what's happening in the gameplay as well. I think that's part of it. But Coach, I love how you'll see that roped off sometimes. It's like basically a rope between the scores table and just creating a little tunnel for the players and coaches there. You mentioned getting the players, but we also got to get the refs out of there, man. I worry about them because fans can be crazy, and it's not just the players they want to get to, it's the refs as well. And I think that's another point. If you are a fan, good grief, do not get all up in the face of a player. You've done nothing in this game but sit there and cheered. This is a moment to celebrate and be happy. This is not a moment to be vindictive about somebody that whatever. Come on. No, I got no time for that, Coach. So you as a coach, if your Milligan Buffs are getting court stormed on, how would you want it to happen?
I mean, the way A&M did it, it was great. You want to make sure you guys are safe. The closeness of the game, if it's a last-second shot, obviously it's going to be harder. But you do want to get your guys off. I don't care if it's a starter or a bench guy. I don't want anybody being on the floor getting hurt. So I want to make sure that they're protected no matter what. Max Strus hit a last-second shot Tuesday night, 60 feet, beat the Mavericks, and there were people excited. And they had armed personnel, police officers, and there were guys that came on the floor right away to make sure that no fans got on the floor. There's not going to be a court storming in the NBA, partly because the fans are, especially the ones around the court, are paying thousands of dollars to sit in their seat. They don't want to be banned, and they don't have 10,000 students at the game that just want to go celebrate with their classmates.
That's right.
They're running out and celebrating with a guy that they have history with. So they know those guys, and they're out there running around. But it is different. But I just want my guys protected, my staff protected, get us to the locker room as quickly as possible. And I think A&M showed the blueprint for how it needs to be done.
That's right. And that's what it's going to take, is just teams doing, like schools doing it well to make this out. Like another one I've heard is like, hey, let's get everyone off the court, set another like 10-second timer, let that count down. And when that hits 0, boom, conflagration, wildfire, go, whatever it is. Now, Coach, you also told me before we were recording, you were actually part of a security detail at a big-time SEC field storming, and I was just curious to hear your viewpoint on that as somebody who's been on that side of it.
Yeah, we were working the Tennessee Alabama football game 2 years ago in Knoxville. It's part of how we raised money for a small college. We took 2 vans full of guys down there. And that's a part of this too. A lot of security firms, they're hiring college kids. They're hiring old retired people that are trying to get a second income. These are not all big buff, strong guys that are working security. You got 100,000 people, in Neyland Stadium. There's only so much you can do to keep them off the field. And we're standing there in our position, waiting to, not let people down our aisle. And my son, Will, got a text on his phone from Bleacher Report that said security unable to keep the fans off the field at Neyland Stadium. He looked at it and just said, hey, that's us. And yeah, and there's nothing we could do. But we had a fan look at one of our guys, and they were standing there, can't get by. And one of the fans looked at one of my players and said, "I just want you to know, we're gonna get on the field." What do you say to that? What do you do to
There's
that?
nothing you can do.
Nothing,
you would get
unless
trampled. You would get
correct.
severely injured.
Right. And we're told we're not going to get into physical conflicts. You can tell people this is what the rules are, this is what you're not going to do. But they hadn't beaten Alabama in forever. It was a huge win. We wanted to, we were celebrating too. We just were, our shirts were different color. They're actually Carolina blue, which is kind of funny. We were wearing Carolina blue and everything, the sea of orange and black and Neyland Stadium. But we got to see the goalposts go down and dragged out. And Tennessee was ready for all that. They were prepared for that. There were people there to make sure that everybody was safe. They didn't try to stop anybody from carrying the goalposts out to the river. And the funny thing is, walking back to the vans after everything calmed down, there's a goalpost sitting on the sidewalk, and the guy said, "Can we get a picture of it?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So here we go from security trying to keep people from knocking it down, and then we're taking pictures of the goalpost on the sidewalk as we walk out of town.
That's perfect.
There's only so much you can do, and with the 100,000 fans, there's nothing we could have done to keep them off the field. And the fines, they talk about the fines. There's a booster sitting there with a checkbook, and they're going to say, "How much was the fine? $100,000, $250,000." They're going to write the check and just be
Hand
happy.
It to Bubba on the way out of the Dean Dome,
Not going to hesitate one bit.
Oh man, that's good. And that's the other, you talk about that as security, then put yourself back into Saturday's scenario where I've heard a lot of the comments of like, "Oh, Kyle Filipowski was the instigator and all this." Let me put myself in his shoes for a second. If I see a sea of hundreds of a couple thousand college students rushing at me, I'm doing everything I can to not get literally bowled over and trampled. So I feel for him in that moment. For any player, I would. And so I just don't have time for that kind of well, he's pushing. Come on, man. You're just trying to survive out there with a herd of elephants coming at you. So we'll take that as it is. Coach, you and I had a very fun experience on Monday, getting to be together for the first time in a little bit. And that's actually going to be today's story time that we're going to share with you from Coach Rob coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. North Carolina, the wait is almost over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is coming to the Tar Heel State on March 11th, which just so happens to be the Monday of the ACC tournament week. You'll finally be able to bet on all your favorite teams in all your favorite sports. With FanDuel, there's tons of ways for you to get in on the action. You can bet on everything from the money line to over-unders to which team will win the final regular season Carolina Duke matchup this year. All of that on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, with live betting, you could even go with things like who's going to score the next bucket or the one after that. See for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on so you can be the first to know when FanDuel goes live in North Carolina. Again, that's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It's great to be able to have another opportunity to have story time back-to-back weeks. Coach, it's been a minute since we've done that. And this week, it's a little more of a recent story time than they often are. Coach, take it away.
Well, we got the opportunity to take the Milligan Buffs to Chapel Hill on Monday, play the JV team. And even though Isaac and I spent a lot of time together on this show, we really don't know each other all that well. We got to spend some time in New Orleans at Final Four, but actually in person. So to be able to get to spend some time with you was really cool. But to walk in the Smith Center, Coach Davis had shoot around early in the day, so the gym was open. And to walk in with my team, my JV team and staff, and 3 or 4 managers, but we had the entire place to ourselves. So that to me is just as special time as any. I love being in there. When at camp, sometimes the kids will leave and I'll be the only one that I can see in the whole Smith Center. And that's a really cool thing for me. It's just to be able to see all that Carolina blue and then to experience an event like that is pretty cool. So guys get to play in front of about 20,000 empty seats. And, and we played pretty well. We're down 4 at halftime. The game got away a little bit at the end, but then, of course, pregame, we got Pete Chilcutt. My friend Pete, who's been on the show, came and talked to the guys. Not too many guys get a chance to to be, in a locker room with an NBA champion, world champion. And he started dropping some names of some of the guys he had played with in the NBA, including two guys we might know a little bit about, Akeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. He was talking about his friendships with those guys. So our players were pretty mesmerized just being a chance to listen to Pete for a while. But then the really cool thing for me is to be able to be able to meet some of the people from the Discord.
That's right.
And people who follow the show and people who are really excited to see you and get pictures taken with you. But to me, it's part of like why I want to write this book, is so people understand that there's the Carolina family. That's the team, that's players, that's coaches. But then you have little side families too, maybe step families of camp people, Montrose camp people. And I think this is what this is becoming for me, at least, and I hope for some other people, is it does give us a piece of the family. We're outside the circle, we're not in, but yet we're building a community, we're building friendships with people, but it also is because of Carolina basketball. So that was a really cool thing for me. I don't know. Tell me more about what you enjoyed on Monday.
Yeah, Coach, I was right with you. And some of the things that Coach was talking about, I'm going to put in some pictures and videos and stuff on the YouTube version of this. So if you're only listening, this would be an actual good one to come back and look. Coach talked about being in the empty, cavernous Dean Dome. It was almost eerie, Coach, during shoot around. And so I just kind of took some 360 footage and I'll drop that into the video of this. But yeah, just getting to be there and experience that and see the looks on the Milligan JV guys' faces as they were going through that. And, it was almost like a Hickory Hoosiers moment in some ways, where it's like, it's still 10 feet, free throw lines 15 feet away, all that kind of stuff. I was just thinking that for them in that moment. And so, yeah, Coach, it's funny because at the end of the day, what we got to witness a historic basketball performance. We got to witness almost a historic letdown of a basketball performance. But at the end of the day, the greatest part of this trip and this story that we're telling is the community aspect of it. Because it doesn't matter if it's just that for the sake of basketball. It matters because it's the community around it and this community that we're forming here on Locked On Tar Heels. And so I'm right with you on that, and so many special moments. But for me, another moment I really enjoyed was just getting to sit by you during the game and just hear your kind of commentary and things. A couple times I said, what are you processing right now? During shoot around, I said, what are you thinking? What are you watching? And so it was just fun for me to get to hear some of your coach's inner monologue in those moments. So that, and then another thing I'll say, and I'll put this video in too. I loved how Coach Rob and I were just very fortunate to get to sit a couple rows behind Coach Williams and Miss Wanda. And I loved watching Coach Williams during the Miami free throws in the second half, when if they miss both free throws, everybody gets crumble cookies. My man, Roy Williams, was all in on this thing. He was so excited. And so I just took video of him getting into it with the free throws in the background. So I'll put that in here as well. But Coach, just a day full of memories. And just, again, a big thank you to you for kind of sharing your community and in your circles.
Yeah, it was cool. We just sitting where we sat. Big shout out to Porky Spencer for getting us hooked up with Coach Williams to sit there. It's the third year in a row I've gotten to sit in that exact same seat. So it was cool. But we had Antoine Jameson sitting in front of us. We had Mitch Kupchak sitting to my right, and he was in the same row with Pete Chilcutt and his daughter, wearing a vintage Pete Chilcutt jersey.
She was, man. It was awesome.
In front of them was Brian Reese from the championship team in '93, and of course next to him is Phil Ford. And we got a chance to ride the elevator with Phil Ford after the game. We got to walk out of the tunnel after the game behind TV Teddy Valentine. That's right. And he stopped
to talk. I couldn't quite get my phone up in time to film.
We ended up bumping into him and trying to walk out of the gym with him. So just a lot of cool memories, and it's just a really unbelievable opportunity. Our kids, our families, we had a bunch of families travel down for the game too. Everybody just had a great time, and it's memories that our players they'll remember forever, being able to get a chance to play on that Smith Center floor.
And as you said, Coach, so many neat opportunities to meet people who are tune in with us each and every day. I mean, that we don't take that for granted. We want to honor your time, and so that means a lot. I want to give a special shout out to a guy named JC Fox, who has been with Locked On Tar Heels basically since I started it. And right on my way out to the airport on Tuesday, we stopped and had some Bojangles together and got a Bowberry biscuit, and he had a Cajun biscuit. So JC, brother, just want to thank you for being part of this show and community for as long as you have. It's awesome. But to everyone else as well, I got to meet Emily Von Pocky in person. That was cool. And so just a lot of great moments. And so, Coach, can't wait to have many more of those together as we keep this thing rolling. Y'all, we're going to build this thing together. Coach, by the way, as you're listening to or watching this on Thursday, has just played in their conference tournament. So, Coach, in advance of that, hopefully it goes well on Thursday. We'll be all cheering for the Buffs. By the way, Coach Pack has his next game on Friday. They're in the Sweet 16, so cheer for his Carl Albert guys as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks so much for being here with us. If you're not part of that Locked On Tar Heels Discord community that we've been talking about, man, it's incredible. The link for that's in the show notes. It's free. We'd love to have you as part of that community if you're not. If you haven't subscribed to the show on video and audio, come do that. And then also, if you're watching and you haven't smashed the like button to let us know you're here, please do that as well. Y'all, it is always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, getting ready for that game, hosting NC State, coming to the Dean Dome on Saturday. Going to be a big-time game there. And until we talk on Friday, peace.